interested to hear what you guys think about those videos and all the subtle ways that the dogs are telling us what they think and what they need in the moment. Let's transition a little bit to what we can do to communicate to the dog we're working with, whether it's our own dog in our home or a shelter dog we're meeting for the first time. We can use our body language to communicate that we are not threatening to them and that we are not trying to threaten them. So if you have to talk at all to the dog, use a very soft voice. And this is something where my advice for shelter workers and volunteers is a little bit different from folks that are working with the dog in their home. I find in my experience that talking too much with a dog in the shelter can be really overwhelming for them. It's a lot of stimuli. There's a lot going on around them and they don't understand you. And you're just kind of creating more noise for them. So I find that less is more with working with shelter dogs. That tends to be highly individualistic with dogs living in a home, and dogs in a home who are acclimated to a person are typically much more used to the ways that that person talks with them. But for shelter dogs in particular, if you have to talk at all, speak softly and slowly. Be really aware of your posture and your just body and space. If you're a tall person, if you're a small person, these things can matter. So offering the side of your body more than full on straightforward can be a really nice way to greet politely. Being aware of your movements and keeping them slow, bringing hands from underneath rather than over the top of the head. Um, it can be a good idea to kneel down to get on the dog's level, but depending on how well you know the dog and the levels of safety precautions that are in place, I wouldn't necessarily recommend kneeling down with a shelter dog who is not um, being who is not connected to a leash that's connected to a person if you don't know that dog very well, and especially if it's the first time you're meeting that dog. Lots of blinks, averting your eyes, looking away from them. Sometimes doing a big yawn followed by an averted gaze can be a really nice way to just like clear the air a little bit. And a note on resource guarding, because this is something that we can escalate with our own body language if we're not being careful. And in sheltering and in homes, there's sort of different ways to deal with this. But the tricky thing about resource guarding is that it's highly contextual. So the dog chooses the resource that they deem high enough quality to want to guard. And these behaviors, sometimes they show up everywhere. Sometimes they show up in really specific contexts. What we see a lot, and what I've seen a lot in my experience, is dogs may guard or not guard something in a shelter environment, and then that behavior pops up or doesn't pop up in a home. So, maybe we had no instances of food guarding in a shelter, and when they get home and they're in a home with children and there's chaos in the home and they're kind of struggling to get used to their routine, resource guarding behaviors can pop up. So what we see in shelter is not necessarily indicative of what we see in the home and vice versa. But what I try to counsel folks to do is to, one, assume that a dog is going to guard anything and just sort of operate that way. And two, be aware of really subtle signs. So we saw that picture of Romeo a few slides ago of kind of covering an item with his paw. Weight shifts over an object, blocking someone or something from someone or something, increasing intensity with the way that they're interacting with the object. So if they're eating food, and then as you come closer, they start to like inhale the food quickly, that can be a sign that they're guarding that item. Hard eyes, whale eyes, and then of course there's more overt stuff like growling, snarling, snapping, and biting. So we want to try to catch up here, right? Like subtle leans over the objects, covering the object with the paws, rather than letting them get to this point. And if you are noticing resource guarding in a dog that you work with, or a dog in your home, the best thing to do is to not take the thing away from them and to seek professional behavior consultation, because these cases, they can be very straightforward, but they can also be very complicated. And there can be a lot of factors that are in play that you need a third set of eyes to look at. So again, don't take something away from a dog who's resource guarding. if you have to, if it's a safety issue and you have to get the thing away from the dog, trade them for something that's even better. And that takes a little bit of knowing the individual animal and what their preferences are. My dog Gus loves tennis balls, will try to eat them and has eaten a tennis ball before. So when we lived in a different area and there was a park I would take him to regularly. There were always stray tennis balls in the park, and like no matter what I did, he would usually find one at some point. So I had emergency peanut butter that I kept in my car, and we would get the peanut butter out and I would trade him for the peanut butter. I would just like put a dollop on the sidewalk. He'd go for the peanut butter. I'd pick up the tennis ball and pocket it. Um, that can be dangerous because you're still reaching for an item while the dog is going for another item. That can increase the stress in the situation, but it's a good emergency tip. And again, seek professional consult, reach out to me or anybody that, you know, that's in your support team to work through some safe ways to work through that behavior, because trade games are good for that emergency situation, but they're not necessarily teaching different behavior or changing the emotional response that the dog has to the resource that they are guarding. We're going to watch a quick video. You can skip through a minute or so if you prefer to not watch this video. There is a bite in this video, but you don't really see it and there's no blood. Just to give you full disclosure, we'll watch the video twice. The first time with no commentary, and then the second time with some call outs of behaviors that I'm seeing. And again, if you don't want to watch this, no worries, skip ahead about a minute.
But I'm especially happy to meet you after your story yesterday. He's a Mastiff, right?
He's a Dogo Argentine.
Oh, okay.
So he's an Argentinian Mastiff.
Okay,
yes.
okay. You're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Oh, I'm so glad you're okay. You too. You too. Thank goodness for you.
Yeah.
Gosh, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day. Oh my God. Very, yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I'm especially happy.
I've seen this video so many times and it's really hard. So a couple of things about just the video itself. They're on a TV set, right? We can imagine there are bright lights. We can imagine there are quite a few people behind the scenes that this dog probably doesn't know. We can see a little bit of the tension that his handler is really like clamping onto his collar, so he has no opportunity to move away. And a woman that he has maybe just met, we don't know that, is leaning into his face pretty closely with direct eye contact. And then as we move through the video,
To meet you after your story yesterday. He's a Mastiff, right?
He's
Is
a
he
Dogo
panting?
Argentine.
Ears are back.
Okay.
So he's an Argentinian Mastiff.
Okay,
yes.
okay. You're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Oh, I'm
Does
so
he
glad
look
you're
like
okay. You
trying to lean
too.
away?
You too. Thank goodness for you.
Yeah.
Gosh,
away,
have a great
getting
weekend.
away from there.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You see that tooth display right before the bite. So several signs that this dog needs space. This is all to say, you know, you can get hurt even if the dog isn't trying to hurt you. And that's especially true in sheltering. It's really my wish that everybody that enters a shelter has a good experience, dogs and humans alike. And I think we can best set ourselves up for that when we are taking really good care of our continuing education and making sure that we're really aware of what's going on and we're working within our skill set. For folks that are not in shelter and are watching this as part of a learning journey with their own dog and their family, this can be really useful information for, you know, one, how you interact with your own dog, but also how you coach and instruct other people to interact with your dog. Because again, your dog might not be trying to hurt somebody, but if their signals are going unanswered, things can escalate. So just wrapping up here, sorry to end it on that note, but think about, you know, whether you're working with your individual dog, whether you're working with shelter dogs, what are some ways that you notice that dogs typically talk to you? Like, what are some of the ways that you really pick up on? Are there any changes you can make to the ways that you communicate with your dog or with shelter dogs here and now? And in moments where you observe a dog that's behaving in a way that humans perceive to be inappropriate, what do you think they need? What do you think that behavior's function is? start to get curious about that because that's how we move forward. And homework, should you choose to accept it, so pop back to the videos and watch them all the way through. Rewatch a second time and pause every few seconds, and then write down, and I have worksheets that you can use for this, objective language that describes what you're seeing with the ears, eyes, mouth, tail, body position, and any other contextual cues that you notice as long as they're objective. Write it all down and then look at your objective notes and make an assessment of what you think might be going on with that dog. And then I've got an answer sheet for you to kind of compare and contrast against as well. And finally, just thank you to years of mentorship from some really special people. And yeah, these are some of the resources that I use to pull this together. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out and I'm always happy to chat. And happy walkies, happy handling, happy shelter time, happy times with your dog.